What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about outlaws in the American West, which you can use to create a historically accurate outlaw character in Red Dead Online. Let's get started. In its simplest form, one became an outlaw by breaking the law and subsequently avoiding justice. For instance, a Wyoming cattle rancher became an outlaw after he murdered his own brother, buried him in the garden, then ran away with his widow. A musician in Kentucky became an outlaw after he was arrested for stealing a young lady's umbrella, then skipped town while out on bail. A traveling salesman for the Sinclair Tea and Coffee Company became an outlaw after it was discovered that he was a bigamist and he fled the state and both his wives. Of course, kinslayers, umbrella thieves, and bigamists are not usually the outlaws that we seek to emulate in Red Dead Online. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there can't be more than a handful of you guys clamoring to create historically accurate 1898 bigamists. And no, I'm not making that video. I think most of us want to create the quintessential Western outlaw, the horse thief, the cattle rustler, the bank, train, and stagecoach robbers of the Old West. And we want to dress them in a historically accurate way so they look the part. The problem, however, is that outlaws came from every background, profession, and geographical region, so they unsurprisingly dressed in a variety of ways. To further complicate our efforts to establish historically accurate outlaw clothing, it's important to note that many folks drifted back and forth across the legal line, hardly changing their clothing style in the process. Take Wyatt Earp, for instance. In 1869, he became the constable, that is, a policeman, of Lamar, Missouri. Following the death of his wife, he began to unravel. By 1871, he was arrested for stealing horses in Indian Territory, but escaped from jail before his trial. 4 years later, he was back on his feet serving as a police officer across state lines in Wichita, Kansas. Another example is Henry Newton Brown. Here's a guy that rode with Billy the Kid in the Lincoln County War, then became the deputy sheriff of Oldham County, Texas. A couple years later, he moved to Kansas and became the deputy marshal of Caldwell, and 5 months after that, the city marshal. A year and a half later, he returned to his outlaw ways by robbing the Medicine Valley Bank in Oklahoma, after which he was captured and shot dead by a lynch mob. Consider the case of Henry Plummer, who, while sheriff in Montana, led a gang of 50 bandits called the Innocents that robbed, looted, and murdered his own townfolk. When the town found out that Plummer was behind it all, they formed a vigilante group, capturing Plummer and lynching 21 members of his gang. According to a March 1864 article in the Weekly Pioneer and Democrat, before the scaffold, Plummer, quote, weakened and begged, cried, and prayed to be let loose, but to no avail. He was hanged by the very people he was sworn to protect. So knowing how convoluted all this can be, I decided that the best course of action is to base these outlaw outfits off of known historical offenders in two different criminal categories: horse thieves and cattle rustlers in one, and bank, train, and stagecoach robbers in the other. We'll start with one of my favorite characters of the period, named James Riley, better known as Doc Middleton, who was one of the greatest horse thieves of the Old West. He stole his first horse at 14, following which he stole thousands more horses and cattle throughout his outlaw career. Doc was also quite recognizable for not only his exceptionally long beard, but also his gold front teeth, which, according to an 1898 article in Georgia's Evening News newspaper, once saved his life. According to the story, Middleton stole some ponies from a local tribe, and when tracked down, was spared because, quote, the Indians believed that Doc must have been favored by the Great Spirit in order to have gold teeth, and they would not kill him. Henceforth, natives referred to him as the Gold Chief, and never again dared to fire a shot at him because of his big medicine. Which is pretty damn cool. You can achieve Doc Middleton's look by purchasing some worn dark brown boots like the Nosalita, or stovepipe square-toe boots and depot pants, over those at the dark brown Alvarado chaps. Up top, you'll want the everyday overshirt in white and the black traditional vest. Add a pair of black leather gloves as well. As for the hat, the frontiersman is nearly perfect if it weren't for the cavalry rope and insignia, so instead go with the tan Cayuga hat. At this point, just add a long beard and some gold teeth and you're the new Gold Chief. Next up is Henry Bourne, better known as Dutch Henry, a man considered to be the most prolific horse thief and cattle rustler of the Old West. This guy led a horse and cattle stealing ring consisting of hundreds of rustlers spread across Kansas, eastern Colorado, New Mexico, and the Texas Panhandle. You can achieve Dutch Henry's look by purchasing the millwright boots and depot pants worn over the boots. Up top, you'll want the bib shirt in black and the brown military scout hat. The notorious Henry McCarty, better known as Billy the Kid, was a horse thief, cattle rustler, and legitimate gunfighter. Although legend places his number of killings in the 30s, it's thought that he conservatively killed around 8 people before his death at just 21 years of age. Achieving Billy the Kid's look and Red Down the Line is difficult, as we lack some of the crucial components, such as his cardigan sweater, unique hat, and light-colored neckerchief. Nonetheless, we can create an historically accurate variation. Start with the stovepipe square-toe boots worn over the brown depot pants. Up top, you'll want the red frumpy shirt. Over that, place the tan traditional vest and worn red narrow neckerchief. For a coat, use the blue Antoine jacket or any color of the military jacket. As for crowning our heads, I chose the Monterey hat, but again, it's not perfect. Other hats that work in a pinch include the black Purkis hat and the black stride hat. From here, you can mix and match different colored frumpy shirts, military jackets, and hats to get some other accurate variations of the one and only Billy the Kid. Most successful horse thieves and cattle rustlers had experience working as cowboys, and if they didn't, they still spent enough time in the saddle that they adopted many elements of cowboy attire. We see this with Doc Middleton, who wore stovepipe chaps but standard attire up top, or Dutch Henry, who wore a cowboy bib shirt up top but regular pants without chaps. As such, if you're designing a thief or rustler from scratch, you can simply start with standard working man's attire from the Old West, then add in cowboy components. So let's give it a go. We'll start with the brown stovepipe square-toe boots, clerk pants, and a white everyday shirt. Now you add cowboy elements: brown Alvarado chaps, a traditional vest, a neckerchief or bandana. Perhaps a sack coat over that. Bib shirts were also popular, but if you go that route, drop the vest. You can also pass on the chaps and instead tuck your pants into your boots, Texas style. From there, you can play around with different combos while still maintaining historical accuracy. For more details on appropriate historically accurate cowboy clothing, be sure to check out my video, How to Create a Historically Accurate Cowboy Character, in Red Dead Online. We'll start with Harvey Alexander Logan, aka Kid Curry, a highly successful bank and train robber from the glorious state of Iowa. While often overshadowed in the historical record by his more famous criminal colleagues such as Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, and Blackjack Ketchum, Curry was exceptional in that he killed more lawmen over the course of his criminal career than any other outlaw of the Old West, somewhere around 10. That doesn't include other men he killed as well. While he's often relegated to a sidekick role in Western popular culture today, during his time many considered him, not Butch Cassidy, the true leader of the notorious gang of outlaws known as the Wild Bunch. Regardless, he was certainly the wildest of the Wild Bunch, and its most deadly member by a long shot. He died game after being wounded and cornered by a posse in a shootout near Parachute, Colorado. According to the Yorkville Inquirer, Curry said calmly to a companion that sought to rescue him, quote, "I'm all in," and turning his pistol to his head, sent a bullet through his brain. You can achieve Kid Curry's look and Red Dead Online by purchasing the brown stovepipe square-toe boots and slack pants, with the cuff rolled up and worn over the boots just like we see in his historical photo. Up top, you'll want the white everyday overshirt and the dark gray roller jacket, a substitute for a dark gray wool sack coat which Rockstar desperately needs to add, and top all that off with a dark military scout hat. Next, we'll look at Curry's more famous associate, Robert Leroy Parker, better known as Butch Cassidy, the notorious bank and train robber who sometimes moonlighted as a horse and cattle thief. In June of 1899, Butch organized one of the largest train robberies in the history of the American West, hitting the Union Pacific Overland Flyer outside Wilcox, Wyoming, netting the modern equivalent of somewhere between $2 to $3.5 million. Butch's gang, called the Wild Bunch, not to be confused with the Doolin Dalton gang who also used the same name, would rob banks and trains up and down the breadth of the West, then hide out in their isolated refuges of Hole-in-the-Wall, Wyoming, or Robber's Roost, Utah. In one instance, 2 officers tracked down the gang, but were ambushed and taken alive. Instead of killing the 2 lawmen, Butch bound them, quote, hand and foot to their horses, conducted them to the foot of the pass, and sent them about their business. To add to their discomfiture, a rudely scrawled note was pinned on the breast of each, which read, "We are deputy sheriffs, sent out to capture Butch Cassidy and his gang. When found, send us home." You can achieve Butch Cassidy's unassuming look by purchasing the stovepipe square-toe boots and padded saddle work pants worn over the boots. Up top, you want the everyday overshirt in white, the black traditional vest, and the roller jacket. Top it off with a Cayuga hat in black, and you're good to go. Called the King of the Outlaws, Reuben Houston Burrough, better known as Rube Burrough or Red Rube, was America's most prolific train robber, hitting 10 trains over the course of his 4-year career. If you recall from my historical accuracy of trains and train robberies video, Rube Burrough is the guy that robbed the same train on the same bridge twice in 14 weeks. I said it there and I'll say it again here. That guy's got balls or he's an idiot. One witness described him as, quote, more than 6 feet tall and strongly built. He wears chin whiskers and mustache, which he dyes black. He has no education and dresses like a tramp. To replicate this tramp appearance, we need look no farther than the photo taken of him shortly after he was shot and killed, trying to escape arrest. To translate this to Red Dead Online, purchase the stovepipe square-toe boots and padded saddle work pants worn over the boots. Up top, you'll want the everyday overshirt in gray and the everyman jacket. Top it off with a dark military scout hat, and you're all set. No video on Outlaws would be complete without discussing Jesse James, who is likely the most famous outlaw in American history, who, along with his brother and gang, called the James-Younger Gang, fleeced 7 trains, 12 banks, and around half a dozen stagecoaches, among other robberies. Jesse's legend was enhanced in dime novels, where he was presented as a chivalrous Robin Hood-type character, avenging the perceived wrongs of the federal government inflicted on the South by stealing money from greedy northern bankers and railroads. In reality, however, James was a thief, outlaw, and cold-blooded killer who utilized the skills he gleaned from his time as a guerrilla fighter in the Civil War to enrich himself, not his community. As for clothing, Jesse James and his fellow gang members wore typical attire of the time, just with the addition of linen dusters, which were used to conceal their weapons as they approached their target. One of the gang's discarded dusters was even recovered in Northfield, Minnesota following the botched robbery of the First National Bank in September of 1876, and remains part of a local museum's collection. While the robbery resulted in the destruction of the James-Younger Gang, photos taken of both the dead and captured members help us recreate what they wore during the crime itself. Using this information in Red Dead Online, you'll want to purchase the black worn stovepipe square-toe boots and the black cabrera or studded pants worn over the boots. Based on the available photos, all the robbers were wearing overshirts, most of which were checked or striped. So up top, you'll want the everyday overshirt in a striped or checked variation, or you can stick with a solid color like white or gray. As a stand-in for the linen dusters, go with the white leather duster, which provides a close enough representation of the real thing. Then just top it off with the stalker hat in black or dark brown. To create your own train, bank, or stagecoach robber from scratch, you can mix and match the components we just discussed. Starting with boots and pants, the evidence suggests that most of these robbers wore dark wool pants over their boots. If we look at images the Dalton gang members killed during their ill-fated Coffeyville robbery, all 4 were wearing striped or plaid wool pants. This is confirmed by the Kansas Museum of History, which holds in their collection several pieces of fabric cut off the corpses by souvenir hunters. We see the same with Clell Miller, a member of the James gang killed at the Northfield robbery. If you choose to take this route, I recommend you go with the striped padded saddle work pants, striped studded pants, striped cufftown pants, or striped bandito pants. If you want to stick with the solid color, try the black or brown cabrera pants or the studded depot clerk or padded saddle work pants. There are others that work as well, but in my opinion, these look the most historically accurate. For footwear, I recommend the worn stovepipe square-toe boots in brown or black. Up top, the most accurate option is the everyday overshirt in solid white or gray, or in a check or stripe pattern. While the collar on the everyday shirt wasn't as common, it has some good striped options, so it can work as well. Vests are optional here, but if you choose to wear one, stick with variations of the traditional vest. Sack coats were worn by most outlaws, but as mentioned earlier, there is no perfect option in Red Dead Online. The closest I can find is the roller jacket or the worsted coat in worn black or solid black. The brown everyman's jacket also works in a pinch. You can, of course, simply forego the sack coat in favor of the linen duster worn by the James gang, which to me looks absolutely badass with everything, becoming my new favorite outlaw component. For hats, I recommend the stalker, cayuga, drifter, stride, or military scout hat. At this point, just play around with these variations. In doing so, you'll create some pretty cool historically accurate outfits for your Red Dead Online outlaw character. Now before we go, if you folks are interested in knowing more about how train robberies actually went down in the Old West, I made a video that dove into the subject a long time back that flew a bit under the radar, so some of you might have missed it, so be sure to check it out. Alrighty, have fun out there guys, keep looking historically accurate, and I'll see you out on the trail. Thank you folks for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, if you guys want to further support my efforts, you can do so on Patreon, or you can buy some gear for the Modern Frontier in the Man vs. History Outfitter shop. Thank you folks for watching. You have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time. Before I go, I just want to make sure that I thank my Patreon patrons. So special thanks to my gold tier patrons, Tyler Baushock Rodriguez, Ashley Gertensen, The Innocents, Hurt and Wade, Man vs. Moose, Bryce V, Cyber, Chasing Victory, Combo Raven, Rich Christensen, Comrade Krieger, Dawson E, Song the Breezes, Noah Ovens, Sneaky Ninja, Noah5943, John Goley, Jigsaw, David Perkins, Yinzian, and Arjun Bacher. Also, got to make sure that I thank my silver and bronze tier Patreon patrons as well. Thank you all for all of your support. Let's keep growing. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Have a good night, folks.